from the start, and also bringing on from the bench. I'm just glad Pat's back. That's all I'm saying. Big Pad. Whether or not we'll use him, I think he will have a part to play. I'm not a massive fan of Bamford, but I did like his positioning on the weekend. And I think I think there'll be a couple of draws in there, and I think there'll be some wins. It's not going to be easy, and I don't think it's going to be easy for Burnley, and it's definitely not going to be easy for Sheffield Wednesday. But that's not an excuse. The fact is, we've got to show up. We've got to put a decent team together. Yes, we've got a couple of injuries. We've got to put a good team on the field. And then we've got to back that up with, substitutions with 10 seconds to go,
Don't think it's funny, though. We're still Patrick's still around. And, fair play to him. He came those last two games. Yeah.
25.
And relying on him being fit to have some sort of impact. And to be fair, the last couple of games, particularly the last one where he came as a kind of cameo. Well, he got the goal that shouldn't have been disallowed. So fair play to him. He looked actually back kind of fitness wise, but the fact we're still relying on this guy for the kind of final run. I mean, it's made for him, isn't it, to score a few between now and the end of the season. You could just see it happening. But yeah, in some ways, it still disappoints me though that we're still on that guy. There's lots of debate about whether we should have got. Should we have looked at other strikers up to this point? But he's coming back in and he looks like someone who could make the difference for us, which is crazy. I just think that's crazy.
Well, it's not quite worked with Joseph and Piroe. You all know my thoughts on Piroe, where I think his best position is.
Bamford's going to start, right? Do you think?
No, I can't see it.
You don't think?
No, I don't think he'll start. What do you think, Con?
I think he will start. Yeah, I think he will start. I think it makes a lot of sense. If I'm honest with you, I think it makes with regards to the guy up top in Piroe. I don't really know what he's offering. 1 goal contribution in 9 or 10. Not a lot from the front line. Johnny Howson killing him the other night as well in terms of just. I thought anyway, in particular, just being able to sort of man him. And Johnny Howson at what, 30, 35, 36, I think he is, could be even older, 5'10". Shouldn't be happening, lads. And I thought when Bamford came on, he gave us something completely different. He just runs beyond the line. Which I think is a big thing. It's exactly what you want. So, yeah, I'd be starting with Bamford for this one, to be honest.
He's got that experience and he's got that maturity as a player as well. It's not, one thing that I'm really upset about this season is the fact that we've struggled with Joseph. That's one of my absolute bloomers for this year. Is that we've never got off the ground with this guy, and that's the reason why I'm saying get at some point get Paddy back on field, because Piroe is not a box player. We're crap on set pieces. It's something that's been an issue for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Pascal's probably the only one out of set pieces that can make it work, and he's had a couple of goals from set pieces. Rodon's had one, so that's where we're lacking there, and we are lacking goals up front. Like Matt says, are we kind of reeling now because we didn't get a number 9 in transfer win? I don't really want to go down that road, but these are all things that you've got to that are kind of cropping up, and again, if Bamford is that saving grace, so be it. Let him go out on a high.
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like, doesn't it? Like 4 or 5 games left. With all that, yeah. If he can stay fit with all the trials and tribulations, I don't think he's good enough. I do not want Patrick Bamford in the Premier League. But I'll be honest, as a starter in the Premier League, if we are to get up there as a starter, I don't think system wise, Piroe makes sense with Farke at all. He's completely different to the archetype that you would have with a Farke striker. You even just look at Timu Pukki, completely different I think even when you look at Cameron Archer, it mirrors a little bit more of what Teemu Pukki was. Piroe's completely different. So I remember thinking at the time, I questioned it when we signed him. I was buzzing, so it was kind of like quite hypocritical, some of the content. It was like, oh yeah, buzzing, but at the same time, questioning how this will work, you know, and it didn't feel right. Obviously, Russell Martin, who was at Swansea with him, then went to Southampton, and I thought that would have made more sense because he did, you know, well at Swansea, and it seemed a little bit more acclimatized to that. I just don't think it's fully worked at Leeds for Piroe, weirdly, because he's what, second, third top scorer. The stats will go against it, but it's very weird. It just doesn't. He has these spells. You remember last season when Bamford, from January to March, he was irreplaceable. And there's two conversations there. Is Bamford that good? And it's like, I don't think he's that good, even though the goal return was decent at that period. I think it is just, you get more from Bamford as a striker. We forget that he started the season with Matteo Joseph in his first season of you know, senior professional football. So there's something which Farke isn't convinced with him, with Joel Piroe. And I just think at this phase right now, Patrick Bamford coming back in with 5 games to go, an absolute swan song. You know, thank you. Stay fit for these bloody games as well, Pat. Don't be, you know, injured. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I genuinely cannot believe it.
Well, what other options have we got apart from bringing somebody in from the under-21s or something like that? Which I'm not opposed to. I'm not opposed.
Well, you kind of look at the options now, Steve, don't you? And you think, with how Bamford's come back, and he did have to prove something, but with these two cameo appearances, you look at Bamford, you look at Joseph, and you look at Piroe. It's not actually that bad, is it? They're not bad options, really, with sort of 5 games to go.
Well, that's why I think. Well, yeah.
There's 3 options there. 2 of them haven't produced.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. One hasn't produced in a while. One hasn't produced hardly anything. You know.
Yeah.
That's the sad scenario. You know.
Yeah. The pecking order is now, isn't it? It's Bamford, because Farke does like him. Then you've got Piroe, and then you've got Matteo Joseph. Now he's dropped to kind of third, but he won't play 2 together. That's the other thing. Yeah, Love to see that, but he won't.
Yeah, and there's something there. You know, if you had Piroe and Bamford, we've seen it before. I think generally, I think you get more out of Joseph when he's partnered with Piroe. You know, I think you do get more out of them. I'm not 100% sure that Piroe is a lead marksman by himself. I know he played in sort of like a narrow 3 at Swansea. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. I mean, just would you lads go? You wouldn't go with Bamford this weekend. You'd stick with Piroe. Is that what you'd do?
No, I'd put Bamford. Yeah, I would put Bamford. I'd start him. And then Piroe, for me, at this stage in the season, go back to what he was doing a bit earlier, that impact player.
Yeah.
Because he had a rich vein of scoring then when he was coming on. Do you remember he was coming on to the sub for the last 10 minutes, whatever? I think it's got to the stage of him now and the criticality of this point now in the season. Why don't we just revert him back to that impact person who can take those moments or those clutch moments again where we need to finish teams off, because he is slow, but he's a lethal finisher. So bring him on for that bit. And also you could bring him on earlier if Bamford is not working with Bamford. You know, use those as the options. But Bamford starts, Piroe comes on for Bamford later on to impact and finish. I think we've just got to do that now for the last few games.